Hello and welcome to Amhara Media Corporation. I am Andnet, new producer of ATV Special Program. This edition of ATV Special Program is to entertain issues related to the survival campaign, in which both the federal and the regional government has called on the public to mobilize against the TPLF junta. And here I have a guest from NAMA, National Movement of Amhara, Dr. Desalegn Chanie. Thanks for coming here and joining Amhara Media Corporation.
Thank you for having me.
Doctor, it's better to recall the speech taken from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed with regard to the survival campaign. There it says, "The ceasefire couldn't bear the desired fruits. The TPLF posed great danger to the sovereignty of the country. The federal government, through mobilizing the people of Ethiopia, is determined to curb this threat." It is just a saying taken from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed a couple of weeks ago. And the same is true that the regional government of Amhara, Chief of Amhara Regional State, Agenyu Teshagar, has also conveyed a message, the same message, just on Sunday. When we come to our discussion point, the first question with regard to the current situation of Ethiopia is TPLF has started invasion on the people of Amhara, Ethiopia. Even some leaders of TPLF have vowed to ruin Ethiopia. And how do you understand such a move by TPLF?
That's a very good question, Andernet. TPLF from the very beginning set out to establish an independent Tigray Republic by dismantling Ethiopia. So in its 1975 manifesto, TPLF unashamedly stated that its struggle is against the Amhara people and against the Amhara chauvinism and the American imperialism. So I was not surprised to hear recently that some of the TPLF leaders are bragging to dismantle Ethiopia. So after it came to power in 1991, TPLF and its surrogates have been attacking the Amhara people, and they have established a very repressive rule in Ethiopia, where literally every one of the ethnic groups were repressed, they were attacked, and TPLF imposed a divisive policy of divide and rule so that it can stay in power indefinitely. But since the past 4 or 5 years, the popular struggle against the TPLF-led EPRDF, especially the one led by the Amhara and the Oromo youths, have produced very good fruit, and TPLF was removed from its central domination, its power in Arat Kilo. So since that time, TPLF has been orchestrating several plots, several conspiracies against the federal government as well as the Amhara people. So in the early November, it attacked the northern command of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. Not only this attack was limited on the ANDF, but it also advanced in 2 directions into the Amhara region. So our people, with that of the ANDF, have successfully hacked and defended TPLF's aggression, and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces marched to Mekelle. By doing that, it was able to effectively weaken the TPLF's warmongering attitudes, warmongering policies, and the TPLF capabilities, I would say. So by now, TPLF is trying to reinvade the Amhara region, the Afar, and they also set to go to Addis Ababa to seize the power that they lost through the Ethiopian people's struggle. So I believe that that's a dream, because the Amhara people has been mobilizing the Ethiopian Defense Forces, the Afar Special Force, the Amhara Special Force, as well as special force from Oromia, Somali, Gambela, and other regions are mobilizing into the front line. So that my understanding is that within the short term, in the very near, TPLF will be going back to the caves they were staying like rats. Yeah.
What should be the reaction of Amhara, Ethiopia?
The reaction has to be clear, and it has to be understood by every Ethiopian. TPLF's intention is not to invade again Amhara territories. They have said it clear and loud. Their intention is to dismantle Ethiopia and to establish a Tigray Republic on the ashes of the Ethiopian regions. So, towards that, every Ethiopian is mobilizing its force. The youths are marching into the training camps and the front line. The regional governments as well as the federal government are also trying their best to be able to halt TPLF's advance and aggression into the central Ethiopia. But still there are some limitations when it comes to these efforts. I mean, TPLF before Emens was a bandit. It was not even controlling a single warada, but within Emens, it was allowed to control the whole Tigray and to advance into the Afar and the Amhara region. I'm proud to say that the Ethiopians are effectively mobilizing enough amount of fighters, enough amount of resources, enough amount of energy and time to be able to defeat TPLF again. So unless TPLF is defeated once and for all, it cannot stop, it cannot cease to pose a threat for the Amhara people as well as for the very existence of the Ethiopian polity. So it has to be defeated, and it has to be defeated once and for all, and Tigrayan people should also be liberated from the TPLF repression, because since TPLF controlled Mekelle, we have been hearing that they have been forcefully mobilizing child soldiers, they have been forcefully mobilizing mothers, they have been mobilizing literally every society of Tigray into the war front. So, according to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, as well as other international laws and customary principles, enlisting and recruiting child soldiers is a high crime. It's an international crime, and the TPLF leaders have also, the TPLF leaders should also be brought to justice for this heinous crime, I would say.
Your party has accepted the recent call by the regional government. How do you accept that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any choice. I mean, Nama was clear from the very beginning that before 2.5 years, we called for the federal government, we called for the Federation Council and the House of People's Representatives that TPLF has to be enlisted as a terrorist organization, because since then TPLF was a destabilizing force in the Ethiopian political sphere, and it was a net exporter of conflict throughout its stay in Mekelle, especially after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power. TPLF stationed in Mekelle, and they were exporting conflicts throughout Ethiopia. So the case in point was the command conflict in Amhara region, where TPLF was arming, supporting logistically some elements within the command militia to destabilize the Amhara region. So by properly evaluating TPLF's divisive role within Ethiopia, we called for the TPLF to be labeled as a terrorist. But nobody listened to us, and it took the federal government at least over 2 years to call TPLF a terrorist and to designate TPLF as a terrorist group. So, as Nama, even before the government came to this decision, we decided that TPLF is a force that should be defeated by all means possible. So when before the regional and the federal government call for action, we also openly called our people to mobilize themselves and to defend their liberties, to defend their freedom, to defend their ancestral lands that was previously forcefully annexed by the TPLF. So we are happy that the regional government called for the mobilization of our people, and we are behind the federal government as well as the regional government when it comes to fighting anti-Ethiopian elements, including the TPLF. So we don't have any confusion. We don't have any delusion when it comes to the viability of the Ethiopian state as well as the well-being of the Amhara people.
Do you think the general public is mobilized as expected?
Yeah, I mean, we can state that the mobilization is good because I would say hundreds of thousands of people are being mobilized throughout Ethiopia. So that force can effectively deter TPLF's aggression when it's engaged in the battlefront. But still we need to do more. I mean, the TPLF is literally mobilizing everyone in Tigray. They are mobilizing every resource. They are mobilizing everything they can. So to be able to effectively deter this aggression, to be able to effectively stop TPLF, I mean, all the Amhara people has to rally, has to come together and to spend everything they can to, for example, they should give money, they should give resources. Everyone has to contribute in any way possible. Those youths who can march has to fight. This is a historic time. This is a very unprecedented time. Unless we stop TPLF, TPLF is going to shatter Ethiopia, our beloved country, and establish its own government. So there are some limitations in terms of the mobilization, but definitely these will be solved in the coming days ahead. Also, there are some hysteria and there are some disturbances within the general public that's based on TPLF's war of propaganda. So my call for the Ethiopian people, for the Amhara people as well as the international community is that there is no any viable way that TPLF can get into Arat Kilo. Nobody can allow that. Ethiopians, every Ethiopian, irrespective of their religion, ethnic background, they will fight to the end. Especially when it comes to Amhara, we believe that TPLF is our arch enemy, so we will fight up to the last drop of our blood to be able to stop TPLF from getting back to power.
What does your party doing in this regard?
Yeah, from the very beginning we have been calling for our people. I mean, we are not an incumbent party, we are an opposition party. We don't have the state machinery, we don't have the power, but we have the soft power. We have a very good grassroots support in terms of our party from the Amhara people. So using that advantage, we call our people to start defending itself, which we believe that we are seeing the fruits. We have been also mobilizing some resources. We also traveled to the front line to encourage our soldiers who are heroically fighting the TPLF. We encouraged and we also brought some supplies in both fronts, in the Raya Kobo front as well as in the Maitabri front. And I mean, we are into this in all of our energy, in all of our resources, and in all of the resources at our disposal. So we will do everything that we can to protect our people, to protect our country. And if the need urges, there would definitely be no doubt that every one of us, including the senior leaders, would go and fight and die defending our country and our people.
What sorts of recommendation you have so as to successfully accomplish the desired outcome?
That's a very good question, Andanat. I mean, so far, over the past 1 month, we have seen some issues when it comes to coordination of effort between the federal government and the efforts of the regional government in the Amhara region. There is some logistical issues which should be addressed immediately. The force that's fighting TPLF from our side, from the Ethiopian side, has to have the full logistics, the full supplies to be able to effectively stop TPLF. We have also seen some sort of disregard in terms of the degree of the magnitude that the TPLF poses by the federal government, which I believe has to be improved. I mean, this should not be a time for planting trees. It should not be a time for doing some extra stuff. Rather, this is a very high time for the federal government and all its institutions to be able to stop TPLF's aggression, TPLF's crime against the Amharas, the Afars, and much attention should be given by the federal government. Actually, the regional governments, including the Amhara and the Afar regional governments, were also a little bit sluggish in terms of quickly responding to the TPLF, as well as in terms of the preparation. I mean, we should have done much more preparation than this, because when the decision was made, when the unilateral decision for a ceasefire was reached, it was clear, it should have been clear that TPLF is coming back to invade our historical territories, our ancestral lands. So all these problems has to be addressed, and they should be addressed very soon. And the federal government has to give all its emphasis, all its energy, has to devote all its energy, like that of the Afar and the Amhara region, to defeat TPLF. Actually, if you see the mass mobilization in the Oromia National Regional State, that's also a very good one, which it has to be acknowledged and recognized.
Dr. Desalegn Chanie, former chairperson of National Movement of Amhara, and by now member of the Executive Committee of National Movement of Amhara, thanks for the clarification you gave me regarding the recent situation here in Ethiopia.
It was my pleasure, Andanat. Thank you very much.
Dear viewers, here it brings us to the end of our today's HTV special program. Do stay with the rest of our programs.